Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we are tackling the psychology of wealth, from Wall Street mechanics right down to your own mind. Now, if you've ever felt totally intimidated by the financial world, well, I have some incredibly good news for you. Getting wealthy, and more importantly, staying wealthy, is actually way less about complex mathematical formulas and almost entirely about your own behavior. So, we're going to look at some timeless rules of money and prove that literally everything you need to know is already right there inside your own head.
Let me start by throwing a question your way. What if you could beat professional Wall Street investors by doing absolutely nothing? I know, it sounds like a total scam, right? But it actually shatters this massive illusion that the financial industry loves to sell us. We are basically conditioned to believe that successful investing requires hyperactive, high-stress day trading, staring at the news 24/7, and trying to predict the future. But the actual data, it tells a completely different story.
So let's dive into this with a concept from way back in 1949. Benjamin Graham, who's basically the father of value investing, introduced us to this character he called Mr. Market. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a business partner, and this guy is just completely manic-depressive. Some days he is wildly euphoric, practically begging to buy your shares at outrageous premiums. And then other days he's totally despondent, wanting to sell you his shares for absolute pennies. Graham's whole point was that Mr. Market is there to serve you, not to guide you. The goal is to exploit his emotional mood swings, definitely not adopt them as your own.
But here's the thing. Instead of just ignoring Mr. Market's tantrums, a lot of people hire professional managers to deal with him. And that brings us to some pretty brutal math. You see a 1.5% annual fee from an active professional manager, and you think, hey, that's tiny, right? Almost negligible. But no, over a 30-year investing timeline, that seemingly harmless little fee can actually consume over 30% of your total returns. Think about that. They are basically capturing the incredible magic of compounding, but running it in reverse, siphoning off your wealth so they can pay for their yachts. And honestly, this is exactly why John Bogle's Vanguard Revolution back in 1975 was such a massive game changer. He basically introduced the closest thing we will ever get to a free lunch in the finance world: broad index funds paired with almost zero fees. By just owning a tiny piece of every stock in the market and keeping your costs at rock bottom, you mathematically guarantee that you actually keep your own money. Sure, you're accepting quote-unquote average market returns, but since you aren't paying Wall Street's crazy fees, you end up with above-average results over the long run.
And Warren Buffett's journey beautifully illustrates why patience is literally your ultimate weapon. He is widely considered the greatest investor of all time, right? Yet a staggering 99% of his immense net worth was accumulated after his 50th birthday. It's wild to think about. Compounding is incredibly, almost painfully boring for a very, very long time. But if you just leave it alone, that snowball eventually grows so huge that its momentum becomes absolutely extraordinary. The secret ingredient here isn't some hot stock tip from your buddy. It is simply time.
Now, to actually let that compounding do its thing, we have to completely rethink risk. Wall Street loves to define risk as volatility, basically how much a stock's price jumps around on a chart. But listen, volatility is really just a temporary paper drop. If you don't actually hit the sell button, you haven't lost anything. Real risk, that's a permanent loss of capital. Or even worse, it's tying your money up in the wrong places so that you can't actually reach your financial goals when you finally need the cash.
So you might be wondering, why do we constantly sell at the bottom and buy at the top if we know better? Well, it all comes down to this intense internal psychological battle. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman actually proved that our brains operate on two very distinct tracks. System 1 is fast, it's intuitive, and it is highly, highly emotional. System 2, on the other hand, is slow, deliberate, and rational. So when the market crashes, our biological wiring instantly triggers System 1. That fight-or-flight response totally takes over, and we turn into our own worst enemies, right when we should be calmly relying on System 2.
To actually protect yourself from your own biology, you need a sort of circuit breaker. And that is the 30-day rule. The rule is simple. Never, ever make a major financial decision immediately after a major life event. Whether that's going through a divorce, receiving a big inheritance, or suddenly losing your job. When your world is completely upended like that, you are entirely stuck in System 1 crisis mode. You have to force yourself into a 30 to 90-day waiting period. Trust me, those financial products will still be there, but that pause, that allows your rational System 2 to step back in and finally take the wheel.
And getting into that rational mindset completely shifts how we view status, too. The classic book, The Millionaire Next Door, totally demolished the myth of what rich actually looks like. High income looks like flashy luxury cars and massive houses, But behind the scenes, it usually means zero buffer, like literally one missed paycheck away from total disaster. Actual high wealth? That usually means driving 10-year-old cars and living in perfectly modest homes. Real millionaires prioritize quiet, invisible accumulation over loud, in-your-face, status-signaling consumption.
So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the difference between two basic economic concepts. Income is what we call a flow variable. Think of it like the water pouring out of a faucet. Wealth, though, is a stock variable. That's the water that actually stays in the bathtub. I mean, earning $500,000 a year means absolutely nothing if your lifestyle drains $500,000 a year right down the drain. A high income simply does not equal high wealth unless you actually capture and keep it.
We can actually take that theory and turn it into a quick, practical reality check right now using the PAW formula. That stands for Prodigious Accumulator of Wealth. Here's what you do. Multiply your current age by your pre-tax income, and then just divide that number by 10. That final number, that is your expected net worth. Now, if your actual net worth is double that number, congratulations, you're successfully accumulating wealth. But if it's half, well, you are under-accumulating, which very likely means your spending is heavily outpacing your saving.
And hey, speaking of spending, we really need to break a massive cultural taboo here. Your primary residence is not an investment. Let me say that again. It is not an investment. It is a consumption good. Now, yes, obviously it provides stability and a place in your community, but think about it. It requires property taxes, relentless maintenance, insurance, and it ties up a massive amount of your capital in a single, highly illiquid asset. At the end of the day, it consumes cash flow rather than actually generating it.
Once you truly realize that, your entire philosophy around spending starts to shift. There's this foundational idea from the book Your Money or Your Life that asks you to look at money through a totally different lens. Every single dollar you spend is a direct trade for the hours of your finite, precious life. You aren't just casually swiping a credit card and watching some digital numbers drop on a screen. You are literally trading away your life energy, hours of your life that you can never, ever get back.
Let's put that into perspective to make it really real. A $5 coffee? That might cost you about 15 minutes of work. A $30,000 financed car? You are looking at trading 2 full years of your life energy. Upgrading to a $500,000 house? You literally just traded an entire decade of your working life for that. So the next time you're about to make a big purchase, just pause and ask yourself, is this item truly worth the unrecoverable hours of my life it demands?
Now look, this definitely doesn't mean you have to go live a life of total misery and deprivation. Personal finance expert Ramit Sethi is a huge advocate for something called purposeful spending. The idea is to spend extravagantly on the specific things you truly love, but, and this is key, cut mercilessly on the things you really don't care about. And even more importantly, automate your savings and your investments. Human willpower is deeply flawed and super limited, so set up a system where your money is automatically routed right to your investments before you ever even see it in your checking account. That way, you never actually have to make the conscious choice to save.
And as you're building out this awesome automated system, please don't forget about the asset that has the absolute highest yield, yourself. While the stock market might return an average of, say, 7 to 10% annually, investing in your own brain, your skills, your education, and your earning power, that can yield a literal 1,000% return. Especially early on in your career, actively increasing your income by learning a new skill is an astronomical return that no market crash or economic recession can ever wipe out.
So where is all this going? Well, all of this builds toward the ultimate endgame, which is financial independence. And let's be clear, financial independence is not about flying on private jets or eating at Michelin-star restaurants every night. It simply equals options. It's the absolute ability to quit a toxic job, the power to just say no, and the incredible luxury of waking up on a random Tuesday morning and asking yourself what you want to do today, rather than what you have to do. At its core, it is total freedom from fear.
But you know, once you actually reach that point, a whole new psychological challenge tends to emerge. The famous industrialist Andrew Carnegie always argued that dying rich is a total disgrace. You see, money doesn't actually change your character. It simply amplifies whoever you already are. If you're a generous person, well, wealth just allows you to be way more generous. But hoarding wealth endlessly? That is psychologically corrosive. It makes you small, paranoid, and totally inward-focused. Giving back, on the other hand, expands you. It reminds you that money is just a tool and a means to an end, definitely not the end in itself.
Honestly, when you strip away all the fancy jargon and the absurdly complex financial products out there, the real rules of wealth haven't changed since the Babylonian merchants were walking around 5,000 years ago. It's so simple. Save at least 10% of what you earn. Put it in low-cost index funds. Wait patiently. avoid bad debt, build up a 6-month buffer, and give back generously. Seriously, every single other thing the financial media screams at you is just marketing and noise, purely designed to separate you from your hard-earned money.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought. You've got the formula now. You completely know how to build a machine. But here is the real question. When you finally reach financial independence and you no longer actually have to work for a paycheck, what exactly are you going to do with your time? I highly encourage you to define the true purpose of your wealth right now, well before you spend your entire finite, precious life merely accumulating it.